the Grad Guys Podcast, the show that demystifies the competency-based interview process and settles interview anxiety by providing you with direction, guidance and support so you can interview with confidence. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grad Guys Podcast. This is episode 7, and in today's episode, we are going to be discussing getting to know your prospective employer and why it's so key and really important that you know everything you can about your prospective employer before you get to that all-important job interview. Now, that interviewer will want to know that you've put the time and effort into researching that organization or the company you're applying for, and that you can answer basic questions about their mission, values, and their operating procedures, and really what the company's about. Now, as ever, I'm here with Pete, who's also my colleague, and both myself and Pete have interviewed many people over the years. And believe us, it sounds so bad if you don't know anything about the organisation that you're potentially going to be employed by. So, Pete, welcome along again. What's your take on why this is so key? What's really important about getting to know your prospective employer?
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, I've interviewed lots of people, and when they can't answer a question about what you do and what the organization's all about, I personally find it really frustrating. And I think this element of the interview not only tests your kind of research skills and sort of basic preparation, but it's also about respect as well. You know what I mean? I think if you're potentially trying to enter someone's organization where they're going to pay you money, I think it's basic respect to know a little bit about who you're applying for. And I know this it might sound like an obvious point to a lot of people who are listening, like, of course I'm going to know about the organization, but you'd be surprised by how many of people just turn up to an interview and know nothing about the employer they're interviewing for. I think people kind of have this like scattergun approach sometimes to interviewing, like in that they just apply for everything. But you put yourself in the interviewer's shoes. Would you really want to hire someone that doesn't know anything about what you do there? Because don't forget, a lot, like most people in workplaces are passionate about what they do, and if you can show that you understand what someone does, it really reverberates with the interviewer because you can get on their level then, and they're like, oh wow, you're as passionate about this as I am. And I mean, me certainly as an interviewer expects that from someone. I expect them to be as passionate as I am about what we do. Otherwise, I don't want to know you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to give you the job if you're not as passionate about what we do as I am, because I don't want to have to carry anyone, and I don't want you working for us, basically. You know, it's like, because I care about what we do, and I think most interviewers about that. And yeah, I think wherever possible, you should weave in the values and the organisation's mission statement throughout your answers, because it's really important. It shows a level of preparation as well. But yeah, like I say, let's bring it back down. It also shows that respect that you want to do what you're applying for.
Yeah, absolutely agree with everything you said there, Pete. Definitely, and particularly the last bit you said there about weaving in values and the mission statement and everything. This goes back to what we've discussed in a previous episode around making sure that company or that organisation that you're going for is the right fit for you as an individual. That do their values and their mission statement, what they're about as a company, does that resonate with you as an individual? Because if it doesn't, then what are you doing applying for that job in the first place? And this goes back to knowing what you're about, where you want to be, and what you need from a company or a career. So that's really important as well. For me as well, this is another really important reason why you need to know as much as you can about your prospective employer, is because in its simplest form, it really can tip that balance in an interview, can't it? It can give you the edge over other candidates. If you're showing how much you know about that company, you've gone to the nth degree in understanding what the culture is about, what the company does, who their suppliers are, if it's a profit-driven company, are there any other outside influences that you need to be aware of? Where are they in the marketplace? All these sort of things. It can really show that you've gone above and beyond other people and really tip the balance in your favor. It can also really boost your confidence as well, which is a huge thing because you are going to be nervous, but it'll give you that peace of mind that you've done everything you possibly can do to prepare for that job. if you can just reel off some really cool sounding stuff about that company, you know exactly what they're about, then if I was sat there in that chair in the interview, that's going to boost my confidence massively, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. It's like you've got your structure in your mind, and this just punctuates your structure really well, and as like it gives you that confidence that, well, if they do ask me about the company, I know all about it because I've researched it. If they do ask me what we do here, I know all about it. And believe me, these questions come up all the time. And it's horrible if you don't know the answer, because you just look terrible because you go into a organization and they say, well, what do you know about the company? And you say, oh, not much really. How bad does that sound? Think about how bad that would sound to you, like in an interview. Just, no, I don't know anything about what you do here.
It sets you off on the wrong footing straight away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As an interviewer, if you hear that, you're going to be thinking, well, do I want this person working for me if they can't even, it goes back to that respect you were saying about Pete, if they can't even be bothered to have a quick look about the web, on our website, what we're about, and find out a few facts around the organization. So it might sound obvious, but people do neglect to do that simple thing, don't they? Yeah,
definitely.
So what sort of things should we actually be researching about a company or an organization? Well, I think I'll start us off with this one. So we've already touched upon it a little bit. So the company's culture, their mission statement, their values and their ethics, these are really important things, particularly because it may well be that some of the questions in interview will be based upon these. The main point of an interview is around suitability. Are you a suitable candidate for the role you're going for? And the way they're going to do this is by testing you on these in interview. So it's really important you understand where they stand, what their standpoint is, and where the culture, mission statement, ethics, values, all that sort of stuff, where that fits into the sort of bigger picture. Now, these are normally available on the internet or the company's website. And sometimes they will even send you this as part of the job application pack, won't they? Or if you're going for a recruitment agency, it might form part of the application pack.
Yeah.
So it's really important you get hold of it, get hold of this if you can. But like I say, normally it's on a website, it's on the internet. Companies are proud of this, aren't they? They want to show people what they're about and what they're value, their culture.
Yeah, I mean, like usually quite a lot of the website is dedicated to this because it kind of dictates the culture of the company, and it's very much a leadership thing to set this down. And any real company will establish this bedrock of an organization before they build on it, really. So it's really important that you know it. And as you said, Ash, we allude to this time and time again. This is your opportunity to see if the company are the right fit for you too. It's like if you, with the mission statement, company culture, do you fit in with that company culture? Do you fit in with somewhere like one of the internet companies where it's a bit more, they work a bit more freely and laid back? Or do you need that structure where you have got a rigid sort of organizational structure because you don't work very well if you're given too much free time? And I think, again, you have to be honest with yourself with this. It's like not everyone does work well when they're given too much free time. Some people need to have that real structure, and they need to have a boss and a supervisor that tells them what to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way different people are. Some people don't need such a rigid structure. So again, like this, the culture of the company, let's look at that. Let's look at how it is. And that should all come across in those sort of bits of information you just said. Also, as well, just to add, I think like following the organization you're applying for on social media.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media channels, because the organization's posts will show you what they're interested in and what they value, basically. It's quite a good one.
You get a good feel for what they are as a company. And like you say, what are their interests? What makes them tick as a company? What are their employees like? You get a real good sort of feel for the company ethos, I think, if you follow the social media and, in conjunction with what you find out through your research online, etc., you begin to build up a picture, don't you, as what it's like to work in that organization.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we go. Number one, researching company's culture, their mission statement, ethics and values. Number two, I think another really important thing you need to do is, well, who actually works in that organization? Who's the boss? You know, this might sound really obvious, but again, you know, if you're going for a job, think of in the public sector, for example, if you're going to go and work for the Home Office, let's use that as an example. It might help to know who the Home Secretary is, you know, and you'll be surprised how many people don't know things like that. Again, it seems obvious, but people do get caught out. And again, it does not look good in an interview if you don't know basic details. And this is not hard to find out, is it? Quick Google search, and you're there.
And I know we joke about this, but people don't do it. Like they don't do it, and it looks awful. Like if you don't know that sort of thing, it's
just embarrassing, isn't it? It's an awkward moment in an interview. It's like, come on, how do you not know this? If you don't know this, do I want you working for me? That's the key question here.
And it's little ways they might catch you out as well, because it's like, again, if you're going for a job in a company, who the CEO is, the CEO will they will dictate how the company runs, and you need to know like who you're working for. And again, like I say, like just people sometimes just don't do these little details. And it's such an easy thing because you can find this all out online. You say like, I say about sort of government sector jobs, public sector jobs. Yeah, some people won't know who the Home Secretary is because they just don't. They might not have a passing interest in politics, but this is your time that you need to have that passing interest in politics. If you're going for that job, you need to know. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned about CEOs. If you're going for a company, you need to know who the head bosses are, who the chief officers are. You need to know the structure of that company. You need to know where you fit into that as well. If you're going for a job and there is a CEO, then why not check them out on LinkedIn? There's plenty of places you can go and find out what that person's about. There's loads and loads of resources out there. Again, on their website, they normally have an about us part of a website. Find out who the CEO is. Find out who your direct line manager is going to be if you can, or where you fit in within that structure. This moves on to our next point. You need to know where the job you're applying for fits within the organization. What will you actually be doing? What is the actual task you're going to be doing if you are successful at that job, and why is it important? Where does that feed into the bigger picture of what the company do? Think about their products and their services they offer. Where are you going to feed into that? How does the role you're going for make that company's profit, or how does it make that organization achieve success or be better or do what they're meant to be doing? It all depends what sector you're going in for. But, ultimately, it's the same thing whether you're going for a job in a company or a not-for-profit organization or a governmental department. You need to know where your job or your role fits within that. Because if you don't, again, when you get to that interview and they ask you, well, how do you see this role progressing in 5 years' time, or where do you see yourself? If you don't understand the role and its place in the bigger picture of things and the more strategic overview of things, then you're going to struggle to answer that, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, most of this information will come up front in a role profile. They usually have like what that's called as a role profile. Well, they detail what the role involves. So you need to make sure you read that. Because I know this again sounds obvious, but how many times have people been for jobs? Let's hold our hands up here. Got the interview pack, go, I don't need to read that bollocks, and thrown it on the side. And then that's what people do. And it's like, but that's what you need to know. All that they're giving you the keys to the kingdom, really, and you just chucking it on the floor and not reading it properly. And it comes across in a terrible, terrible way, because it's so easy to get this information. When you apply for the job, this information will be on there. Information about the structure of the organization, again, will be online. You can ask people that work for the company as well. Like, another key thing with this is just ask. If you don't know something about the organization, ask. They'll have a contact for you on the interview information. Just ask them. And if they don't know, ask where you can find it out, because they'll be able to tell you.
Yeah, definitely. And it's better to ask now than get to the point where you've invested so much time and effort in preparing for an interview. You've gone all, weeks potentially preparing for an interview, and you get there and then you realize again, oh, this company's not the right fit for me. If only I'd have asked 3 weeks ago if they did this or they did that. I mean, I'm aware of somebody who applied for a job and didn't realize they had to work nights until they got to the interview. And you think, well, come on, how did you not realize that? I mean,
what was the job? Night watchman?
No, it was a job working in the emergency services. I mean, all of the emergency services have to work shifts. So it's kind of like, how did you not know that? How have you got to that point? And it's the basics, isn't it? It goes back to what you were saying, Pete. Just chucking the application pack on the floor.
Yeah.
And thinking, I'll be able to wing it. I'll be all right. I've got through uni, handing in my work pretty late. Sooner or later that's going to catch you up. You can't wing stuff, particularly job interviews. And this is something you'll hear us mention time and time again. This is why you need to have structure. This is why you need to prepare for your interviews. And this is why we do what we do, because too many people who are capable and should be getting jobs aren't getting jobs because they are having that kind of attitude of, well, we'll just make do. I'll just wing it. Don't worry about it. No, you need to prepare. And hopefully this podcast and the other episodes we've done will explain why that is so important. Yeah. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. So, the third one there, you need to know where your job you're applying for fits within the wider organizational structure. Really, really important. Okay. Next one. So, who's going to be on your interview panel? I mean, this is actually quite an important one, isn't it, Pete? Sometimes you can't always get this information, but it is really important. If you can find that out, I think again this gets you potentially one step higher up in that interview, doesn't it? Because it's almost as if you've got that rapport with the panel straight away, because you can almost understand where they're coming from. Would you say? Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right, and it can be difficult. You won't always know this, but I say ask. You can ask who. Oh, by the way, who will be interviewing me? And 9 times out of 10, the HR person will probably know because there might be a sign. Bear in mind, though, they may change it last minute, but it's always good to have an idea and ask, because if you know who's going to be interviewing you, you can understand their sort of where they're coming from a little bit more, their background. You can have a look on LinkedIn about what skills that they value. You can kind of work that out from where they've worked, what previous positions they've been in, and it's all good to know what their sort of values and beliefs are. And quite often they will list their personal values and beliefs on their social media. It's quite important. And then again, you one step closer to kind of building that rapport with the interviewer. And again, it's giving you that edge over the other person who might not have done any of this. And you're going in there, that person values leadership because they're always talking about leadership on their LinkedIn. They're always posting and Middleton quotes or something like that, so about leadership. But that's what they value, and this is what we're talking about. It's getting that little edge over the next person, because this is what interviewing is all about. It's getting that edge on someone else. That's what it is, and these are the sorts of things that will tip you over that edge. If you know someone's into leadership and you've researched that, and you think, well, I've got a good example of this, and I know a bit about leadership, I can say some good stuff about it. How good is that going to sound?
Well, it's going to sound amazing, particularly if you say, well, whoever it is, Joe, for example. Well, Joe, I know you're very passionate about leadership, and this is something that I think, and you could even weave that in, and that's going to sound great, isn't it? Straight away, you've got that rapport, and they think, oh, this guy's on my level, or this girl's on my level. I think we can work. I think we can work together. They're going to be thinking, yeah, this person could be the right fit for the job, actually, because we've got that natural connection of we're both into leadership, or we both feel really strongly about diversity and inclusion, or whatever it may be. If you can weave that in, again, it's that step up, that edge over other candidates. No, I really like that one, Pete. That's really good. So you mentioned LinkedIn and social media around finding out about these people. I think as well, websites. You go on the company website, they'll be putting things on there about their chief officers and their leadership team. It may well be that, depending on the size of the company, you probably won't be interviewed by the sort of the head people there, will you? But in smaller companies, it's a lot easier to find out who's going to be interviewing you. I think as well, on an interview panel, which you're pretty much always going to have at least your direct line manager on the interview panel, or whoever's going to be managing you, as well as a HR representative, and then potentially someone else independent as well. It's pretty much the standard structure for an interview panel. But obviously interviews are very different. Depends where you're going. You may not have a panel. You may just have one other person. There could be different stages to the interview. But if you follow the structures and everything we recommend, then it doesn't matter what kind of interview you're going to have. The structure is pretty transferable, and you'll still find value and it'll boost your confidence and reduce that anxiety. It's all about having structure. Awesome. So Pete, anything else we need to think about? What else do you think is really important about finding out about the company?
Yeah, I think as well, like this is another one people don't really think about a lot of the time, but think about the wider context. Think about, are there any stories in the news that either directly about your organization or company or stuff that will affect your organization or company?
Yeah.
A simple Google search will tell you this. Like you can type it in and see what comes up, news. But if there's a current affairs issue that will affect your company or organization, you need to know about it. For example, if you're applying for like the army or the armed forces, what conflicts are on in the world at the moment? You need to know stuff like that. If you're going for a job in an energy company, obviously the energy crisis right now will have a massive effect on the way the companies run. And you might get asked about it. Those are just a couple of examples, but it's like you need to, if you can put in information about what's going on in the wider world, it shows you're kind of well read and alert to what's going on around you. Companies and employers really value that. But also, again, it shows you've done your research. Really well and really in depth.
Yeah, it shows that you've got that bigger picture understanding, that wider context understanding. And I think as well, you mentioned energy there. I think a good example of that is, you need to be horizon scanning as well, don't you? Where is your industry going to be? Where is that organization going to be? Where are you going to be in 5, 10, 15 years times? Short, medium, long term.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I think, that's absolutely right. Like horizon scanning for what your organization is going to face is absolutely imperative. And that is the thing. Again, it's another thing that will show kind of strategic thinking, set you apart. That's a really good shout, actually, mate. That's really good because
energy, for example, if you're going for an energy company or a company that's got links to energy, maybe you're going for a job at an investment bank or anything. That whole area is going to shift massively when we're looking at kind of sort of like reducing climate change, reducing fuel consumption, renewable energy. That's massive. That's a real big change to that whole industry and all the other industries that feed off of it as well. So if you've got an understanding of that and you can demonstrate that in an interview, again, like you said, that shows that you've got a real good oversight of where everything fits in. You're knowledgeable. You haven't got just this tunnel vision on one aspect. You understand how everything comes together. It's like a big puzzle, isn't it? You understand how everything comes together. And I think that, again, it's going to give you that edge. And we keep saying it's having the edge on other candidates. If you can weave these little bits in, these little tidbits that we keep giving you, it's going to make your interview so much more stronger and hopefully give you that success at the end that you so desperately want.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, don't forget, you might get a direct question about this is happening in the world at the moment. How do you think our organization or company should deal with it? That you might get a direct question about that. And if you don't know anything about the event, it might be really difficult to structure an answer.
And you're going to have that awkward moment again in an interview, aren't you, as well? I think another good reason why you need to do this feeds back to you again as a person, your values and everything. If you do a quick internet search and you find out actually the company I'm going for, they test on animals, and I don't agree with that, or the company I'm going for are one of the biggest polluters on the planet, or the company I'm going for have embezzled loads of money and there's loads of like fraud investigations going. Do you want to be associated with a company like that? Probably not. So again, you need to do all this research beforehand before you get to the point of the interview. You don't want to be associated with that. Then forget that company, forget that organization. Again, this is why it's so important. You need to make sure it's the right fit for you. Yes, they're finding out, are you the right fit for their job and the role? But you need to find out, is it the right fit for me? And I can't reiterate that enough because it's so important. And it's one of the biggest things people get wrong. Like you said earlier, Pete, people just blanketly apply for jobs, apply for everything out there, keep going for interviews, and then they wonder why they're not being successful. It's because they haven't put the time, effort into actually drilling down into that role, what it's about, where it fits in a wider context and where they fit in.
Definitely.
One other thing I think I'd like to mention as well is this is really important, not only for people who live in the country of the workplace they're going for, the job they're going for. But also, if you're a foreign graduate or a foreign student and you're applying in another country, you really need to understand things are going to be a bit harder for you, aren't they? You need to understand the context, the cultural differences potentially, and also the context of that company and that industry you're working in that particular company, because you may have studied engineering, for example, in England, but then you might want to go and work out in the Middle East. Things are slightly different and there's different cultural things you need to consider. So I think, again, this is why it's really important as well, particularly if you are considering having a career in international space as well and traveling around. That's another thing you need to consider, is cultural differences, the way things, regulation differences, industry differences. Things are different all around the world. So that's something else just to consider as well. Really
important, that actually. It's a really, really important point. Again, just for interview as well, like cultural differences, there's a lots of cultural differences wherever you go. It's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a whole nother podcast in it.
That is,
in its own right. But I thought it's just worth mentioning now, because if you are going abroad for a job interview, just make sure you're doing your research. If it means you just learn a couple of the custom greetings, whatever it is, and again, that's going to give you that edge, isn't it? And just settle your nerves and also show some empathy with where the interviewers are coming from. Excellent. So we've covered quite a lot of ground there. We've spoken about quite a few things, haven't we? So first of all, we said about make sure we understand the company's culture, their mission statement, their ethics, their values, and what they're about, and where you can access that. We also spoke about finding out who works in the organization, what's the company structure, who's the boss, that kind of thing. And then we also spoke about needing to know what the actual job you're applying for is and where that fits within the organization.
Yeah.
And understanding where that is in the structure. And then we spoke about who's going to be on your interview panel, trying to find out a little bit about them. And then bigger picture stuff, wider context of the organization or the company. So that's those points we covered. Some really useful websites out there, Pete, for finding out this sort of information. What's your sort of go-to website? What would you suggest?
Glassdoor, which is glassdoor.co.uk. Really, really good website for helping you find all this information. I have a couple of bits that I'd like to say, so not just websites, about finding out about an organisation. Just work experience. Like you can ask to do a day's shadowing at a workplace. Again, they might say no, but you can ask. It looks really impressive to an employer. I've done it for a couple of jobs that I've been for. I've done a day with them. How impressive does it sound to say, like, yeah, I know about this job because I've done a day's shadowing. Also about, I think, talking to existing employees that work there as well. Just go and ask someone, speak to people. Again, it's not easy to do this. I'm not trying to make light of this, but like it does put you out your comfort zone, but just do it. Like, do it. You're not going to get anywhere without being out your comfort zone. So it's good. It's good for pushing that kind of pushing yourself in terms of like meeting that anxiety as well, because you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone. So preparing. So yeah, it's another good sort of tool that you can use there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you physically can't speak to people, LinkedIn is a great tool for that, isn't it? So,
yeah.
You could actually, if there's someone in a similar role or in that organization, why not send them a message? Say, look, I'm really interested in this job role. I hope you don't mind me contacting you. Just wanted to find out a little bit more about what companies like to work for. Yeah, really good stuff. You mentioned Glassdoor, glassdoor.co.uk. For those of you who don't know what Glassdoor is, it's a really good website where there's literally thousands of companies listed on there, and people anonymously sort of rate or review that company and what it's like to work for. So when you go on there, you'll get different categories, don't you? Like, what's the salary like? What's the culture like? What are the perks like? All that kind of stuff. So you can build up a picture of what that company's like to work for before you even apply for a job. So again, this is all the sort of stuff you should be doing before you're even looking to start filling out application forms, because don't put all that time and effort into an application form if it's not going to pay enough, or again, it doesn't fit with your values, or the perks aren't good enough. You only want to work during the week, but you have to work shifts or weekends or night shifts, as I mentioned earlier. You need to find all this stuff out straight away before you start investing time, money, and effort into preparing. So that's Glassdoor. There's a couple of others out there. You've got Indeed.com as well. Not only do they advertise jobs on there, they've started doing reviews as well on different companies. So again, really good place to get a feel for what that companies like to work for. There's another one I came across recently as well called thejobcrowd.com. I think it's a bit more of a newer site, not as many companies reviewed, but I think it's quite geared towards graduates as well. There's quite a lot of good stuff on there. So again, check that one out. And yeah, we said about social media. That's really important, isn't it? And it's, this stuff doesn't cost you anything to do, does it? This is free open source research that you can do yourself to give you that edge over the other candidates. And that's what you've got to be doing. Really important. Excellent. Well, again, I think that's another packed out episode. I think we covered quite a lot of ground there. Anything else? Final thoughts, Pete, you want to add before we bring this one to a close?
Just my final thoughts, mate, is as we've kept saying, this is all about getting the edge. This is all about getting the edge, and this is what we give you. This is what we're trying to build you up to, having that edge and being sufficiently prepared for the interview. So this is just another building block in that structure that you're building of the perfect interview.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Well, thanks again for your time, Pete. We'll be here soon again on another episode coming up soon. Look, if you haven't already done so and you're finding this is really helpful and just hearing all this discussions, the things we're discussing, if you haven't already done so, please check us out at www.thegradguys.com. Got our website there. We're putting more and more content on there each week. And also, if you go on there, we've got like some quizzes on there and things. You can go on there and find out where you're at with your interview stage and whether you would benefit from other aspects such as interview coaching or, different courses and things we offer. So get yourself on there and we'll see you on another episode very soon.
We hope you found today's episode useful. If you did, then please be sure to leave a review, share and subscribe. You can also join our Facebook community by searching The Grad Guys and also by checking out thegradguys.com. See you next time.